Hey guys, Sarah with MyGene Pro here with my husband, Dr. Fox. So we were actually watching a Dr. Oz show.
Yeah, we were watching. So a couple days ago, Dr. Oz did a live show on coconut oil because I guess there's been a lot of controversy or questions over coconut oil, and so he brought on two of the top leading experts, one on each side. So one that supports a lot of coconut oil, and then one that doesn't. And they just had a little bit of a discussion on the health benefits of coconut oil. And so one of the things that they found was one doctor was saying that they did studies 10, 20 years ago, and they found that when rats and animals consumed coconut oil, it actually went past the blood-brain barrier and caused inflammation into the brain. And he actually believes that coconut oil causes Alzheimer's in people's brains, and it also leads to heart disease. The other doctor, Dr. Hyman, he's a proponent of eating a lot of fat, a lot of saturated fat, a lot of coconut oil, and he says that there's nothing wrong with it. Period. Like you can have as much as you want, and there's not an issue.
Well, what he pointed out too that was interesting was he said that the studies that they did with the coconut oil on the rats was highly processed, and so it was essentially turned into a trans fat because of the way that it was processed, and it was essentially the lowest quality of coconut oil that you could use. And so yeah, of course it's going to cause inflammation, but he said whenever you consume virgin coconut oil, organic, virgin, as raw as possible, that there actually are studies that show that it reverses inflammation and that it does not cause any sort of Alzheimer's or inflammatory brain diseases.
And Dr. Oz is actually, he's in the middle of everything. So he doesn't believe a lot of consumption is good, and he doesn't believe that you shouldn't have it at all. He actually found that moderate consumption is normal, and he was showing a lady, she would eat 6 tablespoons of coconut oil on a daily basis, and he said to get that equivalent of 6 tablespoons of saturated fat, you'd have to eat 14 to 15 cheeseburgers or Big Macs or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And people don't understand, like, that's a lot of saturated fat, and so he believes in just doing maybe 1 tablespoon, if not more than 2. And so what we've actually found is there's some people, so like myself, I can have as much saturated fat as I want, and it really won't impact me in any way, and actually I'll get a lot of health benefits from it. But like with her,
based on our genetics,
based on her genetics, like if she eats a lot of saturated fat, she like 15 to 20 times increases her risk for Alzheimer's and heart disease, which are the 2 things that they talked about. So it makes sense that like you can't just say everyone, you can just have as much fat and saturated fat as you want because everyone's doing it. That's not being highly specific. It means that there's certain people out there that can do it with no health benefit or with no health issues, but there is a lot of people out in the population that if they follow those recommendations, down the road they will be impacted because they're doing it based off of someone else's research or someone else's benefits that they got for themselves, but they didn't actually test.
Yeah.
And how we figure that out is like we look into the genetics and we know like I can have a lot of it, she can't. Before she didn't know that, and she would eat
I was eating a lot.
coconut oil in the hair, into the teeth, into the legs. Everything.
I still use coconut oil for certain beauty things, but because I'm not consuming it all the time. But I was putting it in my coffee every morning. I was putting a lot of it in my coffee. I would put it. Yeah, I was having a lot. I would take spoonfuls of it. I just put it in everything, and then I was using coconut cream as my creamer for my coffee, coconut milk for smoothies. I was consuming a lot, and then on top of that, because I came from the paleo background, I also ate a lot of bacon, and
more saturated fat, butter.
A lot of butter. I cooked with because I had found all this research that was saying it was good for you, and especially looking into the ketogenic diet, I didn't think that there was anything wrong with saturated fat for me, and I had seen a lot of people have really amazing health results consuming a diet high in saturated fat. And I always thought that as long as the source was good, like organic and virgin, then you're fine.
I think it also depends on this. Like, I think the misconception is like people think high in saturated fat. It's actually just high in fats in general. And that's where the mistake has been, is like when people have a high-fat diet, they think that the only source of fat they need to take in is saturated fat. And that was one of the things that the doctor pointed out was they actually found that people that decreased their saturated fat but increased their monounsaturated fat, they actually had better health benefits than the people who had a lot of saturated fat. So it just shows, and that's one of the things that we work with with our clients is that olive oil is the nectar of the gods.
Yeah.
And it's pure monounsaturated fat. It's almost like 85 to 90% monounsaturated fat. That's going to be better for you in the long run than just having loads and loads of saturated fat. Now, it's not saying don't have it at all. You'll still get health benefits from coconut oil, but we're the type of people, America in general, we tend to overdo it and take it into like an extreme amount when it was actually just meant to have a tablespoon a day. But then some doctor out there was like, I'm doing 10 a day and this is what happened to me. And then everyone started adopting that. And it's just not healthy to do what other people are doing unless you test.
Yeah, and the thing about olive oil too is that, well, because I was having so much saturated fat in my diet and I was cooking with coconut oil, I was cooking with butter, I had essentially removed olive oil, and I had basically learned that, well, if you cook with olive oil, that it actually transforms it and turns it into a saturated fat. And so I started getting
Turns it rancid.
Yeah, and so I was afraid to cook with olive oil, and I sort of just put it on the back burner, and I was using so much coconut oil and so much butter and things like that that I just really didn't think I needed it. I thought I had enough fat in my diet already, and I was eating avocados and stuff like that, so I just thought I was good. But since we started limiting the saturated fat and increasing the olive oil, and I still don't cook with olive oil. I use it to dress our food, so when I'm done cooking, I usually just pour some on top of whatever it is, whether it's a salad or a sandwich or a chicken or whatever it is. I just drizzle it in olive oil, and just doing that, I've noticed a significant increase in how I feel. I have more energy. Just in general, I feel better. But we were talking about the health benefits of olive oil and the fact that he said that it's the nectar of the gods. It's something that people have sort of ignored in recent because we're so obsessed with coconut oil.
Well, also someone said like, oh, if you cook with olive oil, it's going to go rancid, and so people stopped essentially using it because if they're not cooking with it,
they don't know what to
they're
do
not
with
going to
it,
remember to just pour it on food, and so they essentially just stopped using it, and they used coconut oil for everything. So they were cooking with it, they were putting it in their coffees. And it's like it's just like when everyone said like eat margarine, it's healthy for you, or smoking's not bad for you, and it's like do your research and figure out what you're supposed to do for your body.
And that's really interesting that you make that point because, like he said, when we were listening to this girl who was consuming 6 tablespoons of coconut oil a day, Wes goes, this is crazy. This girl started consuming 6 tablespoons of coconut oil a day because she read online or heard somebody say that coconut oil is good for you. We're so impacted by what we see, what we see on the media or what, a doctor said on whatever show. And the important thing that, like, the whole lesson here is that you don't know what your body needs until you test. And we always like to say, test, don't guess. If I were eating the way that he was eating for the rest of our lives, I would almost guaranteed have Alzheimer's and heart disease based on my genetics. Had I kept following paleo and had I kept following ketogenic, I was almost guaranteeing myself Alzheimer's. And the funny thing is that I told him and my family, that was one of the things that popped up, was that my great-grandmother and my grandfather had dementia and had these brain disorders. And so that was a concern of mine. And then when it popped up in my genetics, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And I was basically walking in that path. So test, don't guess. That's the only way you're going to know if your body will respond well to certain foods. I don't want to digress, but he's not supposed to eat avocados, whereas I can. And there's certain reasons for that. So it's just, it all wraps around what your body needs, not necessarily what's the fad right now or what celebrity is eating 6 tablespoons of coconut oil.
I mean, honestly, the best piece of advice we can give people where you're going to make sure you don't have any health issues with the fat aspect is just keep it at a moderate to lower level and then increase your monounsaturated fats. They actually found that if you drink up to 1 liter of olive oil a week, which is a lot, I mean, you just get amazing health benefits. There's so many benefits that you can get from olive oil. High quality, extra virgin, organic. Trader Joe's actually sells a really good quality one. They actually found it was good quality and it wasn't that expensive. And anything you ever do, make sure, like, you got to think, like, is this for me or is it just work for someone else? Like, honestly, sit back and think those questions, because at the end of the day, like, you don't want to be 30 years older and realize, like, man, all that stuff I did when I was younger, now I have to live with it. Because, like, my mom, she's having to live with all the mistakes of her life right now, and she, she just wishes she could go back and do things differently. So
And I mean, you had that experience
Yeah.
when you were consuming, because he was on a ketogenic diet.
I felt miserable. I was tired all
His
the time.
adrenals
I gained,
tanked,
adrenals were gone. I gained a lot of body
a
fat.
lot of weight.
And all the CrossFitters and
And
all
he's
the
like,
people,
"What the heck?"
yeah, they're like, "Oh, just keep eating bacon," and I'm like,
Right.
"You are dumb. Like, keep eating bacon." And
No, I mean, it did not work. I mean, it
No.
works for some people. It did not work
It-
for
yeah.
him. And then when we actually looked at his genetics, we realized that, oh, yeah, you're not supposed to have any of this stuff. And he actually does better on a diet that has carbohydrates in it. He loses fat. He's like one of those lucky people that you want to punch in the face because he loses fat eating carbs.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't. And so I'm not supposed to have, a diet high in carbs. I actually can have, things that he can't have.
Yeah.
So
Genetics is a huge industry right now. We all have genetics. That's how we're alive. DNA. I mean, it's a $600 billion industry in the next 2 years.
And it's the one thing that doesn't change.
You can't change them.
Your
You can
your DNA.
you can change them.
Well, you
but
can
you
change the expression.
which ones are activated and which ones are not activated. But if you don't know, like, you're just living life aimlessly. Like, figure out what your genetics say about yourself, and then figure out how you can optimize that for people and for yourself. And that's essentially what we do. Is we want to optimize your life. But one of the things you can do without testing, add in olive oil, add in a lot of it, and you'll get amazing health benefits.
And just, if you do consume coconut oil on a regular basis, or, bacon or pork, those are things that should be consumed in moderation.
Low
So,
amounts.
yeah, just be mindful that if you're having bacon every single day, I would say probably cut that back to maybe once a week or once
We see it in a
month.
lot of forums that people are eating bacon all the time, and I don't know if people know this, but
Very
pork
inflammatory.
is one of the most acidic meats on the planet and causes inflammation, and we're trying to reduce inflammation.
Inflammation causes disease. So,
Yeah. So take out the pork, and you're going to be like light years ahead of everyone else.
Yep. So that's all we got for you guys today. Thanks for joining us. And if you have any questions, make sure you comment below. Feel free to reach out to us. Also, schedule a free consult with
Yep.
us. We love to chat with you more about what we do. And we hope you stay blessed.
Yep. Share our page with other people who want to learn.
All right. Bye, guys.